Welcome to Ramses, Journey from Persecution to Freedom, a citizen assembly meeting produced by Ramses and Staci Gustafson of the Universal Community Project, a 360-degree platform for holistic community problem solving. Join our interview with Ramses, a 28-year-old LGBT girl, as she takes us on her journey of escape from military persecution in Egypt to find her way to her new home in Canada, a coming-of-age story with adult themes. Also discover the appalling details the West doesn't know about the persecution and terror Ramses and LGBT people face in third world countries. Ramses is a 28-year-old computer engineer from Egypt. She moved to Canada in 2017 and currently lives in Montreal, Quebec. Hello, Ramses.
Hello, Staci.
While we are sharing our stories, feel free to share your comments and questions in the chat. Then the floor will be open for Q&A for the final 15 minutes of our show. So Ramses, let's start our premiere by, let's see, we have already done that. I wanted to start today by talking a little bit about what I thought were some highlights from your initial episode, which was about your childhood. I was really surprised that you thought your family probably knew that you were gay because of things that you did dancing when you were young. But when you came out at 17, is that right?
I came out at 23.
23. It was a surprise to them. They said they did not know. So I thought that was a real highlight for me.
Yeah.
And then I was also very happy to hear you were lucky enough to have parents in an anti-gay country who supported you. I mean, what do you think are the chances of that in Egypt?
As I always say, I think Egypt is divided, like just like the states where we have 50% Republicans, 50% Democrats. I think in Egypt you have 50% literate people who are moderate and who understand diversity, who are open to the world, communicate with other people from Western countries, etc. And you have other 50% who are illiterate, mostly Muslim extremists with very extremist ideas, and also scattered across the non-urban areas in Egypt, like outside the capital, outside of Alexandria.
So does the Muslim religion tend to discourage literacy?
Oh, well, to stay, to keep it politically correct, I would say it is a way that you like when you have a child, like when you are raising a baby, okay, and now they are past 3 years old, I think this period of time is very important for them to teach them, feed them with information, and feed them with literacy, and know their hobbies, and help him learn what he thinks it's fun or what he enjoys. That's for a small child, okay? But for most traditional Muslim families, this is not the case. They simply send their kids to mosque. They deal Muslim scholars as scientists. They take all their information from religion, and instead of relying on text, literature, research papers. What I'm talking about sounds very foreign to these people. And this can happen with any religion, but it just happens to happen with Islam because of the nature of Islam itself and the fact that most of the third world countries are Muslim. So it's like they already have their problems, and Islam has its critical thinking problems. So both mixed together.
I see. Thank you very much. And then I was also taken by your first sexual experience was dangerous. It was not what you expected. What did you feel and think about everything after that?
I was like, I did it. I was very happy that I did it, and that it was a challenge, you know. Of course, I had some religious regrets later on.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. Please forgive me that, you know. However, it was not to stop me from doing it again and again. And the only things that stopped me was my fear from my family. I didn't want anyone to know about it.
All right. So I wanted to ask you, what would you like people to take away from the first episode about your childhood?
I think parents should understand that any single small thing that happens to your kid might affect their future. Okay, a situation where they are crying very badly, something hurts them or whatever, it may affect a lot of the personality of your child. I would suggest to anyone who is gonna be a mother to take a course on how to raise babies, and same with fathers, of course. And at the same time, for third world countries, I really urge these people to not reproduce anymore until they've solved their problems, because we are the victims of 1 hour of sex. You know, yeah, that's what I always thought my parents, and they felt very, very hurted by this. I was very offensive when I said I am the victim of just you enjoying 1 hour together. You just brought me to a world where it's really hard to live and I just have to suffer. But I was in a very, like my times were very dark and I was depressed. I was a very different person. And luckily they managed to get over it.
When did these dark feelings start?
Gradually, so I started to get real depression in college.
And I suppose you didn't find, I mean, did you even know what was going on? Did you know that you were depressed, or did you just feel bad?
I just felt bad until a colleague suggested to visit a psychologist. And I started to see a psychologist at the very last year at college.
So is that like when you were in college, that was about the first time that you were like, this world is, we should not bring children into it. It is just that bad.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that it was that dark, but I think a lot of people understand what you're talking about. That was very interesting. Thank you very much. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on about the first episode or your childhood?
Actually, I think we are at a very good point to continue with the story.
Excellent. All right, where did you want to take us next?
I would move into college very briefly as the challenges that I had to face. So I started to think like an atheist at school, at college.
I'm sorry,
when I
think
started, like an atheist.
Atheist.
Yeah, I started to be like non-religious, and that was when I started studying computer science.
So what was your religion previously?
Islam.
Oh, your family was Muslim, is.
Exactly. My family were Muslim. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Because you were talking about your trials with it, I assumed that it was just a battle with an opposing force, and it was actually in your. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was Muslim. I used to pray, to fast, to read Quran, to donate zakah and etc. But I was not very religious. Like I was not an extreme. And my family are religious, but they are not extreme at all. They are kind of taking it like from the spiritual point of view, like being close to God, he's gonna help us, this kind of stuff. Yeah, sure.
Is there an amount of study of Muslim that is acceptable? And then, I mean, I'm thinking about, say, Judaism or Christianity. You've got some people who are like toeing the line, and this amount is good. And then there are some people like, yeah, I'm Christian. Of course, I believe in God, but they don't practice. And other people within their religion would be like, no, they're not really Christian. Is there an amount at which like the government would say, you're not practicing enough and you're in trouble?
Yeah, so there are 5 conditions in Islam. This is what most traditional Muslims believe in. 5 conditions that you need to satisfy, okay? If you don't satisfy all the conditions, then you are not Muslim, even if you claim that you are Muslim.
Okay.
However, they are very harsh. Like one actually, so the first one is to believe that there is no God except one God, who is Allah, and that Muhammad is his prophet. Okay, this is easy. But the second one here is requiring that you pray 5 times a day. Okay, and you do that every day. And this is not practical. So many Muslims do not do it. However, many extremist people will claim that most of those people are actually not Muslims, or just Muslims by name, because they don't pray. Back in the very beginning of Islam, when the caliphate started, it was like you have to go to the mosque 5 times a day and pray with people, like if they notice you're not going there, they start to talk shit about it. And you guess what? ISIS, for example, or ISIL, they wanted to apply this rule, like monitor people. They have to pray 5 times a day,
That would be a great means of control. I can see why they'd want that.
For sure.
Okay, thank you very much for explaining that to me. That's very helpful. And so you, when you were in college, you became an atheist. You actually
like directly from Islam to no God, no religion, nothing.
You believe there is no God.
Exactly. I believe, yes.
What is the basis for your belief system?
That I don't need to even think that there is a probability that there is God. So that's why I always take this approach with life. Whenever some hypothesis is meaningless and it doesn't help me or benefit me with anything, I don't make conclusions based on these hypotheses. It doesn't construct anything helpful, then I don't need it. Then I assume the null hypothesis directly.
Okay, a lot of people, I believe, would say that the really great thing about believing, okay, let me just ask you, do you believe in an afterlife? No. Okay, so some people believe the the great thing about religion is that there's something afterwards. You don't just like cease to exist, there's meaning. So do you feel you have meaning to your life? Do you have any existential crises or feelings of depression or purposelessness because there's no afterlife, there's nothing else after this?
No, at all. And actually, if I have depression or feeling of purposeless, like I don't have a purpose, it doesn't come because of my beliefs. It comes because of my failures. When I was facing very, very hard time, just waiting for my refugee case to be determined, I was very inconfident in myself. I was very inconfident in everything. Started to read for Schopenhauer and Nietzsche and these kind of very depressive stuff. So that's why I felt like there is no need to care about anything at all from a depressive perspective. But when I talk about atheism, or when I think about it, or when I read about it, and I start to ask myself, what is the meaning of life? I was just curious to know, but it doesn't cause me any internal problems at all.
So it's almost the opposite. The idea of what you were taught in your religion was extremely depressing for you, and the atheism was actually freeing.
Exactly, because religion is all about hell. Anything, any small thing that you do, you are worried that you're gonna be burnt in hell. And in Islam, it's pictured in a very, very it's for example, one of the examples is that woman. I told you about women who are being hanged from their hair, and like 7 levels of hell were hypocrites who lie about their religion. Like, say for example, I pray but I don't. Okay, this is hypocrisy in Islam. They are in the very, very deep level of hell, and there are very bad stuff right there. So,
the images, it's in Christianity too, or how could you wonder what was going on in somebody's head to see that and want to put it down outside of their head. It's really horrific.
Exactly. And yeah, it came from Christianity, and interestingly, it didn't came from Judaism.
Hell, the idea of hell.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even if even if you find some Jewish book about it, it is not as extreme as Christian. And the keywords in Quran that talk about hell, like Jahannam, these keywords are taken from Christian directly.
Very interesting. Okay, please continue.
Yeah, so at school, people like my colleagues started to notice, okay, my opinions whenever I get into a debate about science or about God, etc. I had a number of colleagues who were atheists as well. Okay, yes.
Please catch us up. Where are you? You're working, you're at school?
I am at college, say for example, first year computer science, like second year engineering.
And your colleagues are your fellow students?
And my colleagues, yes, are computer science students as well.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
No problem. Let's say, for example, I'm in the classroom debating with someone about some religious issue, and I start, expressing these non-religious souls, and my atheist colleagues join the discussion, join the debate, and they start supporting me. So people start to suspect. Mm-hmm.
So what does the government do or think about people who aren't extreme Muslim? Do you get in trouble?
Yes, if you leave Islam and express it, like advertise for it, even just by saying I'm atheist. And then people ask you why. So you explain. This explanation can be used as advertisement for atheism. And this can be used by the court, and there are many cases that you can refer to. They have a law that is called قانون ازدراء الأديان. It's like if you insult religions, okay, there is a law that punishes for that. So they consider advertising for non-religion as insulting.
So were you in danger by speaking about this with your fellow students?
Definitely.
Wow.
Yeah, and because people also suspected my homosexuality, they once called my family and they told my father that your son is posting atheist stuff on Facebook, and we are suspecting that he might be a faggot as well. Just exactly these words. They called my father, and that was on my second year computer science. I suspect some of my colleagues to have done that, and I was very terrified when I knew that. I deleted my Facebook completely. I stopped all these social media stuff, and I started to isolate myself.
Had you come out to your parents yet? You had not come out yet.
No, I had to tell them that I was posting about Morsi, who was a Muslim ruler of Egypt after the revolution. So I told my family that I was just posting about politics, about Morsi, because Muslim Brotherhood won the elections after the Egyptian revolution of 2011. So I told my family that they are just hating me because I am making posts against them. And my family are totally against Muslim Brotherhood, but they told me not to post this kind of stuff because it's very dangerous for me.
Yes. So what were the things that could have happened to you?
Okay, so first of all, for instance, I would be walking on the street and someone shoots me with a gun. This happens, and we know people like Fuda, for example, in the 1990s, he was assassinated by an extremist Muslim group because he was a very known activist for secularism. Like just talking about secularism annoys these people. And of course, if I'm just atheist and if I'm expressing it to them, I am called, they have a term that's called murtad or redda, which means to be a Muslim and then suddenly leave Islam. This is punishable in Islam. Okay, so when the Prophet Muhammad died and Arab tribes started to leave Islam and return back to paganism, the first caliphate fought against them and made all of the Arab land submit again to Islam.
They couldn't lose their power over the people.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
So you could have been killed.
Exactly. Not just me, my family as well.
Oh.
Even if they see this video right now, yeah, they might target them. They are more vulnerable than me.
Oof. That's terrifying. Okay. So you were speaking with your friends about atheism, and your Facebook page was reported to your parents. So you had to take it down and kind of went into an isolation.
Exactly.
So how long did that last?
It lasted until my last year at college after depression. Mm-hmm.
How old were you?
I was like 21 or 22, something like that. And depression culminated, depression, stress, because I was a valedictorian and I was under the stress that I have to maintain this status of academic excellence.
You've got a very high IQ, I understand.
I think also like the experiences that you face, you know, like when you isolate yourself, then you can spend your energy studying the material. And I also selected computer science because I love computers since I was young. So I knew that it's something that I can join, you know, and I can just take the exam without studying. But the main problem is I found myself a valedictorian. So my family were like proud, you know, and I didn't want to let them down. And the competition was high because I'm studying with highly intelligent people, you know, my classmates. And you can see that some of them are even atheists. And we talk about existential stuff. We talk about philosophy. So you are competing with very high intelligence people. So it was pretty good environment for developing myself intellectually, but it was a bad environment for being just to be a homosexual, because there are some minority who are extremists, but they have power. So they are threatening.
Okay, so you're under a lot of stress, not just because of knowing that you're homosexual in a country that would kill you over it, but you now have to maintain a valedictorian persona, and
Exactly.
that is very, very difficult. I just can't imagine all the stress. I mean, at the time when you are also fearful for your life. Just amazing. All right, so take us further.
And that's why it's last year I was like at the very peak of depression. So I decided to castrate myself chemically.
Oh my, castrate yourself. As in remove the hormones from your body. So that you would not have these feelings, sexual attraction to men. Oh, that's heartbreaking. Tell us what happened.
I knew some pharmacist friends, and they facilitated because the medication itself, the drug is called Androcure or ciproterone. It is an anti-androgen, and if you take it, it lowers the levels of testosterone. It lowers them very, very badly. Okay, so it reduces sex drive, and you become like chemically castrated. Is you give it to rapers in prison.
Is it something that you have to continue to take, that it goes away if you stop?
Exactly, it goes away if you stop.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness it's not permanent.
Yeah. So
Okay,
I started to take it, and the problem with that medication is that it causes depression. So
you are depressed enough already. Ugh.
Exactly. And I had to start to have physical problems as well, like shaking. My body was shaking all the time. I can't even hold a pen in my hand. I can't focus when my colleagues are talking, you know. I am in a very different world. And when we walk together, for example, I'm just walking alone, like very, very isolated from the people. So one of my friends were like, okay, I cannot see you in this state and not intervene. So he sent me to a psychologist, and it was the first time to talk to a psychologist. And the psychologist really awakened me, helped me a lot. And I stopped taking this anti-androgen medication. And the psychologist at least helped me like pass the time of the stress of exams, until I graduated. And that was very important because they were very important factor of stress. But the funny thing is I now in Canada, I take the same medication for transgender.
I hope in much smaller doses so you don't have the depression.
In fact, I take the same dose, and I once increased it in Ottawa, but I take antidepressants with it,
Okay.
which helps a lot.
But you don't have the shaking now. What do you suppose that's
No.
from?
I think, in my opinion, that I was already in depression, okay, and I had a physiological problems because of that, okay, and my health was not really like when you have this, like it all affects each other. It all affects each other. So psychological problems will affect your body, and the other way around.
True.
Also, here the ones that I'm taking is ciproterone. It is a generic form of the medication. It is not AndroCure. I'm not sure really if there is a difference between AndroCure and the generic form, but at the same time, I'm followed by doctors. I am not as depressed. And at the same time, I take medication to sleep. So I have the shaking, but it is not as hard as before at all.
So you went to the psychologist, and did you speak about having an attraction to men?
Yeah. The psychologist was very open about it.
Oh, good. Okay, that was my question. You weren't in danger for talking about it with the psychologist. He wasn't in danger.
My colleague knew that I already knew that I'm homosexual, and he knew that the psychologist is very nice person who has master's degree from my university in Cambridge, I guess, and in psychology. And the guy is British, actually. He's British Egyptian. We have a lot of them in Egypt.
Very good, thank you. So you received a lot of help from the psychologist.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And that helped me pass the hard college time, finally graduated, got my certificate, and became bachelor in engineering, valedictorian, all this stuff. And then the next phase of pain started, which is military conscription.
Okay, please explain to us the military conscription in Egypt.
Sure. So in Egypt, every adult man has to serve in military, unless in a very specific conditions, they can be exempted. Okay. So for example, if you are the only child of your parents, or if you have sisters but you don't have male brothers, then no one is there to take care of your father and your mother. Then you are exempted from military, which is very unfair and stupid. Like, what the fuck? We are in 2021. Like, father works and mother works, and my sisters don't need me to take care of them. And for me, I was lucky because I have a brother. But you have to pay. You have a brother. Okay, now you have to pay and serve in military.
So you can blame your brother.
Exactly. So you need, to assassinate, to avoid military, but go to prison. Like, here is all the options. And at the same time, you can be exempted from medical problems if you have medical problems. At the same time, also you actually you can serve for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, depending on your educational degrees and your health. Okay, so most people serve for 1 year. If your education is not very high, like you don't have a bachelor, but you have a diploma from a school, an institute, etc., I guess you can serve for 2 years. If you are excellent in academia and you have a degree that is highly needed by the market and by military, like engineering, for example, especially computer engineering, you serve for 3 years as an officer.
So those people who don't have the advanced certificate, you said they can join for 2 years, like it's a privilege, or they're made to join for 2 years?
They are made to join for 2 years.
Okay.
It's a privilege if you are only gonna serve for 1 year, like this is what most people want.
Yeah.
Okay, but however, if you are academically excellent and you are studying something that is needed, like engineering, exactly, computer science, medicine, and also linguistics, especially if you study Hebrew language. So of course, you are needed to be their slave. And I went to the, so first you have, after you finish your education, you have to present yourself at recruitment site with a lot of paperwork that is very stupid and not needed. But anyways, I have finished all this paperwork. I presented myself. I went through the medical commission, which is called commission. I went through the commission and they found out that I'm very, very good. Like there's nothing, nothing that prevents me from doing my military service.
Bummer.
And, yeah, and they once, they took a blood sample, a very big blood sample, like 5 syringes. I think that day I was about to vomit, and I was very dizzy, and I needed to travel from Cairo back to Alexandria. But anyways, they did all what they wanted, and they found out that I'm HIV free. I don't have virus C, I don't have anything with this. Then I heard my name on the day of it's a declaration of decisions, and I knew that I need to travel to Sinai to serve for 3 years as an officer.
That's like what? Almost like prison. Like I'm going to prison for 3 years.
Exactly. My plan was actually to do my master's. I was actually doing my master's during that time. It was during my first semester. Okay, and I was studying 2 courses, one in embedded systems and one in cloud computing. At the same time, I was teaching as a teaching assistant. I was teaching digital systems, FPGA programming, and also basics of computer programming for juniors. So the result of the recruitment was actually a finalization, or like destroying all my career, all my interests, all my academic interests, and now time to go to the desert and live there for 3 years.
Oh.
As an officer. You are a reserve officer. And after you finish your service, you can be called back in at any time whenever needed, especially at war time.
Wow. So, Ramses, how did you feel?
I felt very worried, very terrified, because if they knew that I was homosexual, I didn't know what they are gonna do with me. Okay, and at the same time, I felt very like, the feeling of anger and hate towards anything that in your life. Even my family, like I started to treat them in a very violent way. Like you are the root cause of always happening for me, because he knew that if you bear another child, and if they were male, they are gonna go through all this shit. So why in the first place, why in the first place you do that? Has I caused some of bad problems to my mother, and I really regret that very badly. And I was a terrible person in the end, like someone that you would not like to stay with them, for 5 minutes. But in the end, I decided to, when I took the decision was on November 1st or November 2nd, something like that, 2016. Okay, so next day, I went back to the recruitment site. Okay, I entered the recruitment site. I don't know how I entered. I was not supposed to go in. Okay, it's because it is a military site and I have no business now. I went in. Yes.
Maybe we should stop here and leave this for the next time.
Okay. Okay, why not? Why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
We have run out of time, right on a cliffhanger here.
Yeah.
You have been told that you must report for military duty for the next 3 years in the desert. You have to abandon your love, which is computer science. You're in the middle of your master's degree, or you've just started your master's degree, and they have told you have to report for 3 years of military duty, and you've decided you were terribly, terribly angry, like just, and then you've made a decision and you're going back to the recruitment center to do something, and we're going to find out next week.
Exactly, and I would also add that there is a law in military. So in Egypt, there is a law for civilians, and there is law for military, and it is different. Now that you have become a reserve officer, you abide by military law and military codes, okay? And military law will actually put you in prison for 3 years at least, if they just know that you are homosexual.
So all they have to do is decide it. Oh. All right. I can't wait to find out what happens. And let's open up the floor for questions. So do we have in the chat, JK said, how can we have 1 hour? And then correction, you cannot believe there is no God. Non-belief is atheist. Did you?
Yeah, here is my opinion on this. In my opinion, atheism is a belief. Okay, and this, or at least in my case, this is something that has nothing to do with science. Okay, although I speak science all the time because this is a language I speak, but it has nothing, like when I believe, when the word believe starts to kick in, now we are not talking about science, we are talking about personal beliefs and what I think is absolute truth. At the same time, in general, whether you are religious or non-religious, it is considered as religious affiliation. Like what is your belief in general? So non-belief itself is in the same spectrum. You get my point? So that's why I consider it as a religion, just like any other religion, and that it needs to be respected and that it needs to be considered by government, because this is not the case in Egypt.
You're saying atheism should be considered a religion because it is a belief system.
Exactly. Atheism and any kind of non-belief, it is just in the spectrum. And you have other things, like you have deism, whether you are believing in God. You have agnostic, like you can be agnostic, which is agnosticism. You can be unsure whether there is God or not, etc.
JK has their hand raised. Go ahead, JK.
Yeah, Ramses, I heard your interesting story and bold and brave as you always are. Thank you for sharing that. But disagreeing on certain things with you is kind of hard, right? I mean, atheism, again, I have to correct it. Like, it's not a belief system, right? It's not, you cannot have it on kind of a spectrum, right? It is extreme, right? Two extreme kind of yes or no, right? Both cannot be the same, right? And yes means yes and no means no, right? Those are two opposites, and day and night. So two opposites. Likewise, belief, non-belief, right? Atheism is the other end of it, and the believers are in the other end, right? You can group others like agnostics, skeptics, and all the other things like coming together in between. And I'm still not sure whether there is no God. I can't go to that extreme. So I want to convince my people over. So I want to have a middle path. So those kind of things you can categorize in belief system. But atheism is simple terms. In simple terms, no God, right? When it comes to about God concept, it is, I don't believe in that God. That's it. It's that simple. Don't confuse it like with too many things saying that like, oh, it is also a belief system, right? It's like kind of a mind game which the religious people do it. I don't want you to fall trap of it. You are young on that. So you are evolving and you have come out of religion and you are living out successfully. But still, as you mentioned, right, you will have your own struggle and sufferings. And to overcome that, like you need to stick on to some beliefs. So that's perfectly okay. Whatever.
Yeah, but I'm not sticking to beliefs because of my suffering at all. I'm not that person, and I speak logic. I actually speak mathematical logic. There is difference between I don't believe there is God. This is one statement. And there is another statement, which is I believe there is no God. There are two big differences here. So if you don't believe there is God, then this is a non-belief in God. Okay, so you might be believing in something else. I don't care. But in my case, actually, I believe there is no God. That's
Okay.
why I consider
Hold
this
on.
as a
Hold on a
belief.
second, right? Your logic itself is on a fallacy. Please understand that, right? How can you define? It's like mathematically, right? You will go for an assumptions, x is equal to 0 or something. It's not like that, right? How can you define nothingness? How can you believe nothingness, right? God, when you say like there is no God, which means there is nothing, right? So how can you believe on nothingness? There is nothing to believe. So you cannot say that statement itself is an absurd, right? When you say like, I believe there is no God. So are you sure? How can you be 100% sure? No atheist will say like, I am 100% sure there is no God.
This
right?
is the meaning of belief. Belief is not supposed to be scientific. Belief is supposed to be 100% sure about something because of, self-confidence in it. It is not based on science. It's not based on logic. It's not based on anything.
No,
but when I take the statement,
yes, you are making a statement, right? You are making a
yes,
perfectly wrong statement. That's what I'm saying. You cannot.
I believe that there is no God is the wrong statement. Yes. And I believe there is God is a correct statement. So I can believe that there is God, but I cannot believe that there is no God. Yes, Staci?
I would like to ask a question back to the childhood I just thought about, but I don't want to interrupt you guys when you guys are ready.
No, go ahead.
I
just had a fun comment on there, just saying, how can we have like a sex for 1 hour? Seriously, man, you just said about like 1 hour of sex to bring in a child, right? And sex just happens for 2-3 minutes maximum or 4 times. That was just a joke.
I agree. Yeah, 10 minutes.
Well, I was wondering, so you had a sexual experience and initiation when you were 15, I remember, is that correct?
15.
And then you said when you were in college, you started to take anti-androgen hormones. So what was your sexual experience up until this point? And how long did you then go without or try to not feel that way?
So my sexual experience was like sporadic. Okay. When before college, I had several encounters, like maybe 10 times, for example, 11 times, etc. After I started to do my bachelor, I continued, but depression, when depression started to kick in, I really stopped. Like I started not to have any sexual encounter anymore. But then after I bypassed military problems, and after I moved to Cairo, I returned back to sexual activity.
So how many years did you go without?
It's a whole years of college, like maybe like 5 years. I had 5 years studying engineering. I didn't do much sex, if I remember correct.
So were you trying to go straight or were you just suppressing your desires?
Suppressing, like hating myself and trying to be like an asexual, forcing myself into asexuality.
Oh, I can just hear in your voice the anguish and that feeling of this is not good. So during the time up until college, did you have any relationships? Did you like get a crush on somebody and pursue them, or they pursued you? There was one person?
During college, no, at all, for many reasons, and it was not my target. But after college and after I moved to Cairo and I started to be independent, yeah, I got involved.
Very good. All right. Any other questions from the audience?
I have a question. Do you think that the only way that a closed society could outperform an open society is by suppressing all opposition? I just wonder what's the long-term competition look like? Because, you know, if you have a closed society, everyone has to think the same. So you have to use oppression on people that don't conform. But I guess what I'm asking is what power does the open society have over the closed society that attempts to suppress non-conformism?
I would say wealth and easiness of life and economic flourishment. Because here is what happens, okay? A society like America or Canada, why we are first world, but Egypt will be third world and will stay third world, and it will remain third world until the end of life and later life. Why? Because we are an open society and they are a closed society. So we outperform, yes, but we do not replace. They will stay, or they will remain, but they will remain as bad as they are or even worse. Whatever they do.
They might reproduce faster, though. That might be the
They
one.
are reproducing faster, and this is a problem for them. There are 100 million people now in Egypt and living in a very narrow, the Nile Valley and Delta. It's really not much space for them, and they are surrounded by desert. And now they are threatened by Ethiopia.
So the closed society is less economically successful because they don't, I mean, my naivety, I'm sorry, gonna sound stupid here, but seems like you can oppress people and still spend money. I don't know.
And here's the point. Yeah, sorry, I didn't express the relationship. Okay, I didn't express the influence. So I didn't explain it. So an open society like the States or Canada attracts smart people and treats them fairly. Okay, so for instance, I'm not calling myself smart, but I'm calling myself skilled. Okay, skilled in computers and programming. So the open society doesn't ruin my life because of my sexuality, because of my religion, because of my physical appearance. They don't care about that. They don't even give a shit. Okay, so they let me perform. I am only one person, but I really contribute to the economic equation that runs this country. So I am one, I have 10 people in my team, and there are 10 teams in this office and offices and offices. Then you have markets, you have competition, you have technology, especially as I'm a computer scientist at the end of the day, I do technology, you know? Then you have a good economy in your country.
That is a beautiful perspective. Thank you. I am going to take that away in my life, that if you don't ruin people's lives, they can achieve things for you.
Exactly. I don't care about military persecution. I don't need to care about fear from my family. I don't care, you know, all these stressors are gone. Now, what I do in my spare time, I go and read on Wikipedia. I learn something. I talk to people, which improves my English. For instance, I also do programming projects, which improves my computer science knowledge. Can you see how it is really, really beneficial?
I really can now. That has enlightened me. Thank you very much. Daniel, any more questions?
No, I love that answer. It's so great to get that that perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think that is a great place to end here. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And please come back in 2 weeks to discover what Ramses goes back and tells the recruitment center. I cannot wait. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time.
Thank you, guys.